Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Dutte. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. If you see it on these monitors here in the newsroom, we're going to bring it to you live right here. This is CBS News 24/7. Tropical Storm Debby makes a second landfall, this time in South Carolina. We look at the damage and where the slow-moving storm is headed next. Vice President Harris is back on the campaign trail today in the battleground states of Michigan and Arizona, while Donald Trump plans to hold a news conference at Mar-a-Lago. And a foiled terror plot forces organizers to cancel Taylor Swift concerts in Vienna, Austria. And this morning, investigators say they found new evidence in the suspects' homes. We're going to get to all of that this hour, but we begin with Tropical Storm Debby. It has made landfall earlier this morning and is now tracking north through much of the East Coast. The storm has drenched coastal communities in Georgia and South Carolina with record rain, powerful winds, and flash floods. It's also spawned tornadoes in North Carolina that have killed at least one person. You can see these images behind me here. CBS News correspondent Christian Benavides joins me now. Christian, tell me what it's like where you are right now.
Vlad, we're currently in Abbotsburg here in North Carolina. We were making our way to a government building here in Bladen County because Bladensboro, the town of Bladensboro, has some significant flooding that we understand has caused some significant water damage to some of the businesses downtown there. And look at what we ran into. This is one of the main roads just going from town to town. And look at that box truck right behind me. It appears that as it was trying to make its way here, it sort of veered off to its side. It's nearly on its side over there. One of the residents here tells me that we're actually in between two swamps. And that's what, if you take a closer look, I mean, you can see that the water is actually moving as you go a little bit further down there. Officials, while we were here, finally closed off part of the road, so people now know that they can't drive over here. This is an area that residents tell me is prone to flooding. This is an area that often floods even during thunderstorms, but obviously floods when there's a major storm, a major hurricane. I was speaking to a local resident here, and I'm wondering if you can just, Joyce, tell me a little bit about what you've seen throughout the day here.
There's a lot of people have been coming in. They drive up here, and I guess they see how bad it is, or they want to see if they can go through it, and it's obviously you can't. And I posted pictures this morning about my yard and the swamp and everything, and trying to keep people from coming this way, but they keep just coming to see if they can get through, because that's the only way to Elizabethtown through here, and if you go that way, it's to Wyville. So
you've got a lot of flooded roads here. You were telling me that you're a lifelong resident here.
Yes.
You get storms that come through here.
Oh, yeah.
And it often floods.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me a sense of, through Tropical Storm Debby, it's been raining and raining and raining.
Yeah.
What has it been like?
Well, this is actually the worst day it's been. I mean, it hasn't been that bad. It's, it's kind of like it's going to flood over, but this is the first day it actually flooded over. Because people's been driving through here, it's till today. And it just, sometime this morning, sometime last night, it just flooded over, because my cousin just came down here earlier, and he said the water was to that light pole. So this has happened since 9 o'clock last night.
Yeah. And I also wonder, people think it's just a tropical storm, that it doesn't, sometimes some people have the opinion that it doesn't cause significant damage.
Oh, yeah, it causes a lot of damage. There's a lot of damage in Bladensboro. I've got a friend that owns the medicine shop. She got flooded, and they've closed down roads, and on the other side of, like going towards Elizabethtown there's a brick house, and there's water there that's flooded.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of places that are flooded.
It's certainly a difficult scenario.
And a lot of people I know have no power. I was lucky. I mean, I just got water in my yard, but I still have power. But a lot of people don't.
Joyce, thank you so much for chatting with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're
again, Vlad, this is what's sort of happening over here. We're going to try to get to Bladensboro now to take a look at what's been happening over there. So I'll send it back to you.
All right, Christian, thanks for your reporting, and thanks to Joyce. Hope she's okay throughout all of this. We appreciate it. Our team coverage will continue with CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore. So, Grant, give us an update on Debby's track.
Well, I'll tell you, Vlad, look, it's important to note, you said, oh, it's just a tropical storm, but the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is how we rank tropical systems here in the United States, it's based purely on wind speeds. And when you've got a tropical system that has dumped a lot of rainfall over the course of an entire week, flooding is going to be the issue, not the wind speeds. Let me show you this map here. This is showing you really state by state places that have picked up some of the most rainfall. Lake City, Florida has seen nearly 20 inches of rain. This is going back to last Saturday. And now North Carolina beginning to see some of the heaviest rainfall. Calabash, North Carolina, 7.22 inches of rain. So second landfall happened earlier on this morning. The first landfall was back on Monday in the Big Bend area of Florida, made landfall in South Carolina to this morning. It is beginning to race to the north. It's still moving relatively slow at around 7 miles per hour. But again, all of that rainfall, flash flooding concerns across much of the Piedmont of North Carolina down into eastern North Carolina, there through the Appalachians of Virginia and extending north into the northeast. This will continue to be a flood issue, but also a tornado issue. Tornado watch in effect for eastern North Carolina up into southeastern Virginia today. The system will quickly begin to exit to the north and east, but not before dumping a lot of rainfall through portions of central Pennsylvania, New York, up into Vermont, and before finally exiting as we go into the weekend and early next week. Some places across North Carolina today could pick up another 6 to 8 inches of rainfall, and those heavy rainfall rates will continue all the way through the northeast as we head through Sunday afternoon. Vlad, back to you.
All right, Grant. Appreciate you. We'll check back in with you a bit later. Okay. Let's move on to politics now. Vice President Kamala Harris is spending a second day campaigning in Detroit as she continues a tour of battleground states. The Democratic presidential nominee and her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, were originally set to hold a rally in North Carolina today, but the event was postponed. She'll head out to Phoenix, Arizona. That's the next stop on the list. CBS News campaign reporter Shauna Mizell is in Minneapolis this morning for us. So, Shauna, you were at the rally yesterday. We could all see on our screens the enthusiasm in that stadium, but give us a sense of some of the folks you've been talking to, what their reaction has been to Governor Walz becoming the vice presidential nominee.
Hey, Vlad, good morning. That's absolutely right. I was in Eau Claire, Wisconsin for the second rally for Harris and Walz as a running mate and a ticket together, and the energy there was palpable. I had a campaign official tell me that the estimate was more than 12,000 attendees. People really seemed to be excited about Walz, and even the people who weren't as familiar with him were excited about getting to know him and excited about supporting him this November. And I think what really underscores the feeling from a lot of the voters in Eau Claire yesterday is the fact that some people actually parked their cars because of traffic and walked more than a mile just to get to that event to hear from Harris and Walz.
So we know that the vice president is set to speak at the UAW today in Detroit before heading to Phoenix. Do we expect that Republicans will continue to hold these opposing rallies in the same cities? I do note that Governor Walz has very, very strong labor support, which is why they're headed to the UAW.
Exactly. They actually ended up in Detroit last night and finished their day there. They'll be there again today. But we do not expect to see the same thing that we saw yesterday, which was J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential person. He was out in Eau Claire as well, and he actually walked up to Air Force Two, which is Kamala Harris's plane. He told reporters on the tarmac that he just wanted to check out his new plane, but we do not expect to see that kind of counter-programming again today.
All right, Shauna, we'll check back in with you throughout the course of the morning. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Vlad.
Let's talk about the Republicans now. And this man, J.D. Vance, has ramped up his recent attacks against Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Walz while on the campaign trail. Yesterday, the Republican vice presidential nominee called out Harris for not taking any questions from the media. He even approached her plane on the tarmac saying, quote, hopefully my plane in a few months. Joining me now with the latest is CBS News campaign reporter Jake Rosen. J.D. Vance, as you know, Jake has started going after Governor Walz's military record. What's he alleging, and how has the Harris-Walz campaign responded?
Well, J.D. Vance told reporters yesterday in a gaggle in between campaign stops that he thought it was that Walz did a disservice, and he thought it was disrespectful and a, quote, slap in the face to Americans who have served for Walz to have either embellished or misspoken at least a few times about exactly what he did while he served in the military. Now, the big thing that the Trump campaign has tried to seize onto is the timing of Walz's departure from the National Guard, which came right before the 2006 military actions that the United States took overseas, and the Trump campaign has tried to seize on that in conversations with them. And Vance is a messenger for that, obviously, as he also served overseas in the military.
Donald Trump is also set to hold a press conference later today at Mar-a-Lago. What do you know about that?
Well, the Trump campaign has also tried to seize on Kamala Harris since Joe Biden was taken out of the top of the ticket and Harris was put in place, that there's been 18 days. They've made it very clear to reporters since that date and since she has taken a formal press conference. They are hoping to kind of push her to do that by Donald Trump speaking today. We're also expected to maybe hear Donald Trump kind of redefine Kamala Harris. The campaign has kind of struggled to define the Harris and Walz ticket effectively as they've tried to kind of workshop new nicknames and lines of attack on things like Walz's handling of the Black Lives Matter protests in Minneapolis and Harris's stance on things like policing and the border that J.D. Vance has brought up repeatedly in his crisscrossing of battleground states in the last few weeks.
All right, Jake, thank you very much. Investigators say they found Islamic State materials and chemicals while searching the homes of suspects charged with plotting a terror attack at a Taylor Swift concert in Austria. But fans aren't letting the cancellation of Swift's concerts disappoint them. Take a look. That's a group of fans in Vienna singing Swift's song, Long Live. You might have caught them singing the lyric, I'm not afraid. Let's take you now to Vienna. CBS News Pentagon reporter and producer Ellie Watson happened to be there for vacation. Ellie, you were supposed to see Taylor Swift in concert while in Vienna. I'm so sorry. I know, knowing how connected Taylor Swift is to her fans, I can bet that she feels really bad about it as well. But tell me what the mood for the fans was like there in Austria.
Well, Vlad, thank you. Last night when, sorry, you hear me?
I can hear you, Ellie.
Awesome, thank you. So last night when we got the breaking news alert that two had been arrested, obviously we were scared because we weren't even thinking about the potential dangers here, but we thought, okay, that's maybe the end of it. We'll have a good time tomorrow. We'll be safe. And then last night we got calls from all of our friends who knew we were here, knew we were celebrating, having a good vacation to see Taylor Swift together. And they told us it was canceled. Now, last night was a bit of everyone was hunkered down, a little sad. Today, walking around, there are Swifties uniting. There are people dressed up in their Eras Tour concert outfits, which is a big deal. Dressing up as your favorite era, whatever album you like the best of hers. And then I happened to hear a Taylor Swift song from far away, walk towards it. I see a bunch of mostly women dressed up, all different ages though, some with their daughters, some with their best friends, wearing friendship bracelets and singing at the top of their lungs some of their favorite songs.
That is so cool. So Ellie, what's going to happen for fans like you and others who actually had tickets to this tour? I know that in the wake of that Ariana Grande concert in Manchester a few years ago, where many people were killed, that reportedly Taylor Swift was really worried about something like that happening at a concert of hers. And no doubt with all this evidence that the authorities are gathering, there clearly was a threat to the people at those shows and to the artist herself. So what's she going to do for folks who are holding tickets? Is she planning on coming back?
We don't know yet. We haven't heard from her directly yet, but from the organizers of the concert, everyone will have their tickets refunded, which is good news. I mean, seeing the people out today, there are going to be some more making shows in the future. This is not going to deter people from going to concerts. We did learn just this morning from Austrian authorities that one of the suspects had just started working for one of the companies providing services to the stadium itself. So while the authorities said they're not looking for any other suspects, the cancellation was done because there was still abstract danger. So they were trying to protect the 65,000 expected at each show, but also the thousands who would be outside of the stadium, either buying merchandise or attending all of the different themed parties going on. Taylor Swift, we're still waiting to hear from her, but the Eras Tour has been a wild success. She loves her fans. I expect that these concerts will continue, even if not in Vienna.
Yeah, and it's heartening to see fans like yourself and others gathering just to sing songs and to show that they're not afraid and that they still love Taylor Swift. Ellie, thanks for sharing your experience with us. We appreciate you. Hope you get to see her. All right, let's dig into some of that reporting. Let's bring in CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Skanga for more. So Nicole, you heard that conversation with Ellie, but what more can you tell us about what investigators found? That detail that Ellie provided us at the very end there was sort of interesting. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, Vlad, that's a new detail. Austrian authorities are, however, learning more about the 19-year-old Austrian who masterminded this foiled plot. Plans to use a bomb or a knife. The suspect pledged allegiance to the Islamic State militant group back in July. That main suspect made a full confession in custody today, according to Austria's general director for public security, again swearing loyalty to the IS militant group's leader on the internet and keeping chemicals and technical devices at his home in the small town of Ternitz. Authorities have not given his name yet, but say he was planning that attack with an explosive device or a knife targeting the estimated 20,000 Swift fans that were set to gather outside the stadium in Vienna. Explosive devices, detonators were found at his home, as well as extensive ISIS propaganda material, 21,000 euros in counterfeit money, machetes, knives. The general director added that there's currently no information that other concerts are subject to any explicit threat. That's good news, of course, for Swift fans that are headed to London next week for the last leg of her European tour. This was her sub-ultimate stop on her Eras European tour.
Incredibly frightening details. And are we expecting to hear from the authorities at any time today?
Authorities have addressed the public today, and as this investigation unfolds and continues, we know, 3 individuals are now in detention. They are being questioned by authorities there. We're also hopeful to learn more from U.S. authorities here and U.S. intelligence agencies regarding what we and others have reported as an initial intelligence tip from the United States, tipping off Austrian authorities to this threat. So hoping to learn a little bit more about how those details unfolded, Vlad.
All right, Nicole Skanga for us. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Well, the White House is optimistic about a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. In fact, I would say the entire world is, and Ukraine is on the offensive in Russia. Our international teams will have updates on these major conflicts. Plus, it's already been 1 year since those deadly wildfires in Hawaii. Our Jonathan Bigliotti is on the island of Maui with how the community is rebuilding. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. The White House says a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is as close as it has ever been. And this comes as the Middle East is in danger of an all-out war after assassinations of leaders in Hamas and Hezbollah. Meanwhile, Israeli forces say they killed a senior Hamas member during an airstrike in Gaza last month as Israeli forces continue operations in central and southern Gaza. CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio is in Tel Aviv this morning for us. Ramy, as you know, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation ended its emergency meeting in Saudi Arabia overnight after the killing of Hamas's political leader. Iran blames Israel. What was the outcome of that?
Sure. Hey, Vlad, good to see you. Yeah, perhaps it's no surprise that the organization that pins itself as the voice of the Muslim world has issued condemnation after condemnation squarely at Israel. In its final communique, the OIC condemned Israel for the death of Hamas's political leader, Ismail Haniyeh. He had been the leader of Hamas's political wing for the past 7 years, ever since 2007 until his death just a little over a week ago. Israel has not admitted to that killing, but Iran has put the blame on its shoulders. It also condemned Israel of war crimes, aggression, as well as genocide. This is referring to things happening in Gaza since October 7th there. Now we know that it's nearing nearly 40,000. That's a number killed in Gaza ever since October 7th, according to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry. What's notable, though, Vlad, is that what's not been said is any public pushback by the OIC against Iran, saying to try to de-escalate, try to pull back from the Mideast tensions that we're talking about. But I say that because in private, Iran's foreign minister has said that people have been talking to him in phone calls or during in-person meetings, stressing that Iran does have the right to respond to what they call a terrorist crime.
All right, Remy Inocencio for us, reporting from Tel Aviv. Remy, as always, we appreciate you. Thank you, friend. Let's talk about Russia, who is now retaliating against a reported push by Ukraine into its territory. Fighting between Russian and Ukrainian troops have moved into a third day after Ukrainian soldiers reportedly smashed through the Russian border in the Kursk region. Ukraine has not confirmed that attack, but joining me now with more on this is CBS News foreign correspondent Ian Lee. So, Ian, update us on the situation on the ground.
Vlad, information right now is limited. Ukrainian officials, and we've reached out to them, they're not commenting on the attack so far. So most of what we're getting is from social media and Russian officials. So we've seen videos allegedly showing Ukrainian troops advancing in the Kursk region. There is another one which appears to show a large number of Russian troops surrendering. Russia is also releasing its own footage of what it says are air and artillery strikes targeting the Ukrainians. Russia's top general also told President Vladimir Putin that they've halted the advance, but it does seem like this attack has caught Russia off guard. Vlad?
All right, Ian Lee reporting for us. Ian, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Russian prosecutors want an American ballerina locked up for 15 years over a donation she made to a humanitarian group that helps Ukrainian people. Ksenia Karolina pleaded guilty yesterday, and you might remember she was arrested back in February in Russia while visiting her 90-year-old grandmother. Authorities there went through her Venmo account and found the $50 donation. They accused her of collecting money to buy supplies for the Ukrainian army. Karolina is a dual citizen of the United States and Russia. We had expected a sentencing this morning. It has been delayed. Obviously, when we get more information on that, and if it happens, we'll bring it to you live right here. CBS News 24/7. Let's talk about President Biden and his day. We're going to take you to the White House for an update and look into his role in the Harris-Walz campaign going forward. Plus, a contractor's mistake in New Jersey is creating concerns over the rain Debby is expected to drop. The action the city is taking. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Military hearings at Guantanamo Bay for accused 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and two co-defendants face growing uncertainty. Last week, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin threw out a plea agreement that would have spared the defendants a possible death sentence. Defense attorneys contend the plea deal still stands and they will not take part in any hearings while they challenge Austin's decision. A powerful earthquake rattled parts of Japan today. Officials urge people to stay away from the coast and put a tsunami warning in place. You can see in this video, the quake shook tower cameras in the area. 9 people were hurt, but they're expected to be okay. NASA says it may turn to SpaceX to bring home 2 astronauts who flew to the International Space Station on Boeing's new Starliner capsule. They arrived in June for what was supposed to only be a week-long stay. But the Starliner experienced hydrogen leaks and other technical issues preventing them from coming home. Now NASA is thinking about bringing them back on the SpaceX capsule, but that wouldn't happen until at least February in 2025. Tropical Storm Debby made its final landfall earlier this morning and is now tracking north through much of the East Coast. The storm has drenched coastal communities in Georgia and South Carolina with record rain, powerful winds, and flash flooding. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with another look at the storm's path. Grant.
Vlad, this has been such a slow-moving storm. Think back to Monday morning. Monday morning, it's Thursday morning now. Monday morning is when it made its first landfall. It was moving an average of about 5 miles per hour since then, and then it moved back over the Atlantic Ocean for a day or so, and then made its second landfall this morning. Look at all that moisture. All that cloud cover is all associated with either Debby or the tropical moisture that Debby is pulling up. It's getting caught up in the upper level flow and being carried north up into the North Atlantic. This is a very, very moist system, just from the standpoint of talking about all this tropical moisture that has been just pounding portions of the southeast. But today, finally, it begins to accelerate a little bit more. Okay, look, here's the map. That was landfall, Big Bend area, Monday morning, slowly moving across Georgia. It went back into the Atlantic and then made that landfall there along the central South Carolina coast early this morning. But just look at all that rainfall. That's now being pushed north into North Carolina, bringing heavy rainfall rates, and then it's still just going to sit there throughout the day today. A lot of the heavy rainfall also being exacerbated by hitting the Appalachian Mountains, where then more moisture is literally being wrung out of the atmosphere. Now, not as much of a windstorm. This is primarily a rainstorm, but still portions of North Carolina are seeing those wind gusts around 30 to 35 miles per hour at times. There's also a concern for some tornadoes, but the main threat is going to continue to be the excessive rainfall, a rare high risk for flash flooding through central North Carolina up into central and western Virginia, and that extends north into the mid-Atlantic and northeastern states as we head through the next couple of days. I mentioned that tornado risk. There is a tornado watch in effect for eastern North Carolina into southeastern Virginia today as the storm starts to accelerate itself to the north. Latest track from the Hurricane Center shows you this thing quickly moves up to the north and east, but it will bring up a lot of that tropical moisture, dropping 5, 6, maybe even 7 inches of rain in some places. Portions of North Carolina could still see 6 to 8 inches of rain today. And then those 5 to 8 inch rainfall totals will continue north into parts of central Pennsylvania and upstate New York. A concern for sure. Let me show you the forecast radar here as we go through the next several days. You see it transition to an extratropical system as it loses those tropical elements. It'll then transition to the north. Notice how on the eastern side, you still get that really heavy rainfall as the system begins to exit as we go into Saturday and then Sunday afternoon. Quick note, some other weather going on across the country. We've got excessive heat still across the southern tier states and a little relief from heat that we had last week across the northern tier. Many places across the northern plains, Vlad, only peak in the upper 60s and low 70s this afternoon. Is that fall, I hear? Maybe a little fall? I don't know.
Tell you, Grant, I went for a run yesterday in that like 70+ degree weather, and it felt pretty good.
It feels good. I agree.
All right, Grant, thanks so much, buddy. We'll talk to you a little bit later. CBS News correspondent Christian Benavides joins us now from Bladenboro, North Carolina. Christian, it looks like there's still some very heavy flooding where you are right now.
That's right, Vlad. This is the business district that we just spoke about a half hour ago. In fact, Joyce, who we were speaking to earlier, gave us a little bit of a shortcut to be able to get here. As we told you earlier, we were having some trouble getting here, but we are here now. You can see that this road is flooded. This road is essentially the town's main street. Right here, this medicine shop, this is the medicine shop that Joyce was saying that her friend owns that got some significant flooding inside. The water, officials tell me, has actually receded a little bit, but it's still, you can tell, some of these roads are unpassable, although we have seen some emergency vehicles, high water vehicles that have been able to get through some of the flooded areas here in Bladenboro. At this point, as we mentioned, overnight, they had significant rainfall. In fact, I want you to just sort of look. Here's where the flooding starts currently, but you can tell where it was, where it started. And we're waiting to see some of the shops here. As I mentioned, this is sort of the main street. I understand that you guys have cut part of our interview that we had with Joyce earlier. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys listen to that because I think it's so important to just hear from people who are here on the ground. She says this community often floods, so she knew when Tropical Storm Debby was on its way that it would be something significant.
I'm fine, but there's just a lot of people that need prayer, and you know, obviously this guy had a bad day because he thought he could get through there and he found out he couldn't. I'm hoping he's all right because I don't know who he is.
You're fine, but
I'm fine.
Your neighbors?
Yeah, my neighbors. I mean, around here they're fine, but you know, in Bladenboro, I'm from this area, and there's people that's got flooded and they have no power. And I know the medicine shop got flooded because my friend Rebecca, she owns it, and there's a lot of flooding in Bladenboro. Now I don't know much about Clarkton, but.
So you heard from Joyce there. That's the medicine shop right there that her friend owns. Certainly, as I mentioned, the water has receded, but all of these businesses have some sort of flood damage. It's just a matter of how significant is it, how significant was it? And as I mentioned, really tough to sort of get around here, find your way around here. You have to find a local like Joyce there, who's lived here her entire life, to tell you how to be able to maneuver these streets. Luckily, thankfully, she told us how, and we're here, and we'll be following this throughout the day. Vlad?
All right, Christian. Yeah, we can see where those sandbags are packed behind you in some of those storefronts, but the damage still looks pretty extensive. Thanks so much for your reporting. We'll talk to you a bit later. All right, let's move on back to politics. President Biden says he's not confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power if former President Donald Trump loses the election in November. He made that remark in an interview with CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa. It's the president's first interview since exiting the race. Listen.
Are you confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power in January 2025?
If Trump wins, no, I'm not confident at all. I mean, if Trump loses, I'm not confident at all. He means what he says. We don't take him seriously. He means it. All the stuff about if we lose, there'll be a bloodbath. It's have to be a stolen election. Look what they're trying to do now in the local election districts where people count the votes. They're elected, they're putting people in place in states that they're going to count the votes, right? You can't love your country only when you win.
Well, the president has a busy day today. Let's bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe to break it down for us. So, Ed, what is the president's role going to be in the Harris-Walz campaign going forward?
Well, initially here, Vlad, we're seeing him hang back and allowing the ticket to suck up all the attention and the oxygen and begin fundraising and sharpening their message. The president, we expect at some point, probably post-Labor Day, will begin making appearances on their behalf in the key battleground states where he's perhaps most popular or has the most enduring legacy. Pennsylvania, obviously, would be the big one. You'll probably see him in the Midwest as well. Probably has limited utility outside of that, frankly, and might do other events with congressional candidates who might be want to seen with him. I was struck yesterday being in Wisconsin with Vice President Harris and Tim Walz that for the first time to my ears, she made mention of the president and said we should thank him for his service and the decision he made. And while it wasn't as loud and excited and boisterous as the applause that she and Tim Walz was receiving, the crowd did have a moment of real sustained applause followed by a chant of thank you, Joe, that went on for a little bit. And I think that's a good preview, A, of what we'll see on the first night of the Democratic Convention in Chicago in about 2 weeks when they pay tribute to him and what he did over his 4 years as president, and a sense of the sort of respectful and thankful reception he can anticipate once he gets out on the road. I will say this, though. It's unlikely he'll ever draw crowds as large as the ones that Harris and Walz have seen in recent days, and it's part of the reason why Democrats were so concerned and eager to get him out of the race. Yeah, that makes an excellent point there, Ed. And speaking of the race, there's about 6 months left in the president's presidency. I guess in D.C., y'all call that a lame duck. I've actually never understood it because I've never seen a lame duck. Does that mean the lame duck can't fly? But that's what they call it when you are effectively in the twilight of your presidency or whatever job office you happen to hold. But do we know what is on that agenda? He can actually still perhaps pass some significant legislation, can he? Well, it would require incredible and unforeseen Republican cooperation to get legislation done. But certainly in the executive space, whether it's through executive orders or other decisions that can be made by agencies, he can have a lot of influence. I suspect the most dramatic, boldest ways he can make a difference in the coming months is in the foreign policy space. You saw the return of those Americans last week. Watch the ongoing talks about a ceasefire and hostage swap in Israel. Keep an eye on the situation in Russia. There are things in that space where he's going to have a lot more time now and can really shape things on his own without congressional interference or without congressional input. And so what else is there? What might be here that he was working on up until the last moment before it happens? We'll have to wait and see. But knowing his own personal interest and so much of the work that he's done in the last 4 years, it's thinking a lot about the world and sustaining American norms and democratic, lowercase d democratic norms in this country. And part of that, at least for now, is sort of hanging low and letting Harris and Walz take much of the attention so that voters get excited about electing them and, in essence, sustaining and continuing his legacy.
Ed O'Keefe, as always, my friend, brilliant analysis and reporting. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, you can stream Bob Costa's full interview with President Biden. That will be on CBS News Sunday morning. 1 year ago today, devastating wildfires ripped through Maui, Hawaii, killing at least 102 people and destroying a large number of the island's home and businesses. It was one of the deadliest wildfires in U.S. history. CBS News correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti went back to look at how the community is remembering the victims and how it's rebuilding.
And Vlad, good morning to you. 95% of the rubble in Lahaina has been removed, but the trauma is still pervasive. Everyone here knew at least one person that was lost in this fire, and for some, it's been too much. A quarter of the community has left the island. For those that have remained, they're like new pioneers trying to reimagine and rebuild Lahaina's future. And the task has been daunting. The biggest concern right now is long-term housing. FEMA and the Red Cross have struggled to find long-term housing. We've spoken with victims and survivors that have said they've moved as many as 6 times in the past year. New long-term housing has been built. That will help ease some of that pain. Then the focus is on rebuilding. 2,200 structures, many of them homes were lost. 47 permits have been issued so far, and we're told that that number will continue to increase in the months to come. I had a conversation with the governor yesterday, and he cautioned the new Lahaina will not look like the old Lahaina. Homes will be further spaced apart, the concern being the increased threat of wildfires fueled by climate change and the warming weather here. And then, of course, sea level rise. Front Street, historic Front Street, hundreds of homes and businesses lost there. The governor saying some of those businesses and homes will not be allowed to rebuild. You can imagine the conversation very tense, but today it all stops as this island focuses and remembers the victims. 102 people were killed, and this morning, thousands still struggling to find their footing, Vlad.
Jonathan Vigliotti, thank you for amplifying the voices of those left behind. Appreciate it. Coming up next, our Dana Jacobson goes one-on-one with Olympic gold medalist and basketball star Sue Bird. What she had to say about this year's games. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. It's another big day at the Summer Olympics in Paris, as 20 sports in total are in action, but all eyes are on the United States women's national basketball team as they continue to dominate with an 88-74 win over Nigeria in the quarterfinals. CBS Saturday Morning co-host and CBS News and sports correspondent Dana Jacobson is following the action for us from Paris. Dana, what's up? Bonjour. You sat down with WNBA legend Sue Bird. Tell us about the women's team and their win and what she had to say.
Well, think of it this way, Vlad. Sue Bird has won 5 straight gold medals for women's basketball coming into these Olympic Games. This would have been her 6th if she was still playing. She's not there, but she knows this team and Olympic-style basketball incredibly well. So we sat down in the Visa Lounge presented by Chase Sapphire to talk about what's special or different, shall we say, about the Olympic game.
What really makes it difficult is the lack of training time. We're really trying to literally build the plane as we're flying it. And I think that's actually why, generally speaking, you see the team get better as the games go, but that's the challenge.
And she said that it's the kind of thing where you're doing well, Vlad, when you feel uncomfortable because you're trying to adjust to a team that you just don't know really well. And by the time you get your comfort, that's the gold medal game you've won, and you're going to break up again and not be playing on this stage for another 4 years. Pretty incredible talking to her and knowing the pressure that's on Team USA to try to get its 8th straight Olympic gold medal in women's basketball.
Love it, love it, love it. Cheering Team USA on. And Dana, what are you following today as it's midday in Paris? What are you expecting to take in?
Well, I'm going to take in some food. No, I'm just kidding. We are taking in a lot on the track and field, actually. We had our first ever American triple jump winner for a woman earlier in the Olympic Games. She'll be competing later in long jump, and it's really rare that you see these athletes doing both of those sports. And of course, Noah Lyles. I know earlier you saw his nails. We were showing off his nails. Noah Lyles will be back on the track. Much more his forte would be the 200 meter than the 100, where he already won gold. That final is tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And to your reporting as we get closer to the end of the games. Dana Jacobson for us. Dana, thank you. All right, we're continuing to keep an eye on Tropical Storm Debby. Here's a look at our live weather radar. We'll have one final look at the storm's impact and what's next. That's coming up after the break. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. A repaving mistake in Hoboken, which is in the state of New Jersey, just across the river, has residents worried that ongoing flooding issues could get even worse. CBS New York's Christine Sloan reports.
Contractors hired by Hudson County have been paving and milling over blocks of Park Avenue in Hoboken. In the process, city officials say the county crews accidentally paved over a couple of storm drains, some water valves like this, and several sump pump drainage pipes, including Domenico Sorelli's.
They've unfortunately paved over the curb line, so where most sump pipes have been paved over. Luckily, mine's shoveled out.
He says he's worried about more rain Friday.
The water can't get out.
Hoboken's mayor sounding the alarm, sending a letter to the Hudson County executive, who is taking responsibility. He got crews out Wednesday to correct the mistake.
We've already fixed the sump pumps.
There's going to be possibly more rain Friday night. Are we going to take care of this by then?
Yes. Yes, the issues will be addressed before the heavy rain comes on Friday.
But this Hoboken councilman says the bigger issue, the repaving changed the grading of the road.
This road is kind of flat, right? And so that is an issue. The middle of the road needs to be, if possible, higher than the corners as well, so that when it goes to the side, gravity will take it to the catch basins.
Joe Quintero says the city noticed water levels rising more quickly during Monday's storm, but adds Hoboken would have to get a lot of rain in a short period of time for the street to flood. In Hoboken, Christine Sloan, CBS News, New York.
All right, let's bring back CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with one final update on that tropical storm, Debby. Grant, we just saw that reporting from Hoboken, which is, again, just across the river here in the New York, New Jersey area. What kind of rain are we expecting on Friday here?
Well, you heard her mention that you have to get a lot of rainfall in a short period of time. That's what tropical systems do. There's so much moisture that comes up with these tropical systems, so they can drop 1, 2, 3 inches of rain in that short period of time, 1 or 2 hours. That's all it takes to get a lot of rainfall. And if it doesn't have anywhere to go, it goes up. And that's why flooding has been an issue across the southeast, continues to be an issue across North Carolina today. But look at some of these rainfall totals up towards the northeast. Not as bad as to the south or to the west. And I think that might be a saving grace for portions of New York over into Hoboken and northern New Jersey, where maybe 1 to 2 inches of rain. We could see some higher rainfall totals than that. But the bulk of Debby's rainfall looks to be concentrated over central Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and then farther north into portions of Vermont. Still, though, Debby is a tropical system, still a tropical storm, but weakening and starting to move faster, and that's also a saving grace to the northeast. Unfortunately, that was not the case across the southeast and continues to be the case. It was a slow-moving system, but it's starting to move faster now. We just got the 11 o'clock advisory from the Hurricane Center, so it's up to a 10-mile-per-hour forward speed, but still bringing very heavy rainfall. That's the primary concern. As all that tropical moisture moves north, you see the flash flood risk for tonight into tomorrow is going to be on that marginal to slight side for the northeast. Meanwhile, a high threat for flash flooding today from North Carolina into Virginia. Let me show you the latest track here. Again, this is the latest from the National Hurricane Center. No real big changes. Center of the storm stays offshore, bringing a lot of heavy rainfall to portions of central PA, New York, after all the heavy rainfall across the Carolinas today. Cooler weather to the north with heat ongoing across the southern tier. Vlad, back to you.
All right, Grant Gilmore. Thanks, Grant. Appreciate it. An encore of CBS Mornings is next. This is CBS News 24/7.